What is programming? How can you start programming even if you are not a software engineer? Hey hackers, I'm Jorge and this is a workshop that I did recently for designers in my company. This is the second part, so if you haven't seen the first part about interactive prototype, click in the description. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. Also, like it and subscribe. So that's pretty much it. Hope you like this video and see you very soon. Okay, so programming. For you, what is programming?
Being a hacker.
Okay. Alright, that's fair. Any other ideas?
Face it.
So for me, programming is basically transforming code into, like coffee into code. No, I'm kidding. Ideas or business requirements into something meaningful. So for me, programming is very similar to like all the languages that you speak. So you speak English, you speak Spanish, you may speak German, you may speak all the languages. So you know what's the syntax of that language, how is the grammar, how to build sentences, etc. We programmers do the same, but for computers. So instead of learning English, we learn something else like JavaScript or like Java to talk to computer and say, this is what I want. So it's like a programming language is a way to talk with computers as you may do with humans, but with a computer. More a lonely process. So what are some front-end languages that we use? Some of you may already be familiarized with this. This is a really brief introduction. HTML. So HTML basically is the semantic, like you define, I want a title, I want an avatar, I want a link. You don't necessarily tell us how things are gonna look like how are you gonna positionate the element, if the avatar is gonna be rounded or not. You just simply say, this is the skeleton, this is the structure. So that's what HTML is. So that example in HTML would be something like this, you know, don't be scary, but you have, you know, a div, which is kind of like a block, and then you define different blocks inside that. You define the image, then the H1 means the title, and the A is a reference, so a link, basically. So we learn how to talk with the machines and say, for HTML, this is how you create things. So we learn this. There's no trick. It's just you learning, and writing stuff. And Fraser is a master on that, so can help you out. Then the second step is what CSS is. So CSS is about the look and feel, like how things should look like. So in CSS is where we say, I want to like a border, I want to make the avatar rounded, I want the title, like my name and the link to be together. I want the title to be black. I want the link to be blue. That's what you specify in the CSS. The CSS is about the appearance, like the look and feel of the things that you're writing. Without CSS, we wouldn't have like beautiful websites. And this is like, you know, how you write that stuff in CSS. Again, I'm not gonna tell you what every single piece means, but it's about like learning how the machine is expecting you to define look and feel. So you just learn properties and you write them over and over. And then what is JavaScript? So JavaScript is about like bringing like different actions, behaviors to life. So in JavaScript is when you start saying, you know, if the user clicks here, I'm gonna open a pop-up model, or if the user, I don't know, like opens the embedded checkout, I'm gonna open an iframe. That's what the JavaScript is, you know, like adding all the behavior, all the actions to your page. So this is a very basic sample, but imagine that anytime that the user clicks this card, I want to display an alert dialog. So with JavaScript, this is the video. But you see, anytime that I click, I'm going to say, hey, click, click. So again, I learn how to tell the machine, anytime that the user clicks on that item, on that card, I want you to display something. And that's how we would use it in JavaScript. So again, like don't bother, like don't be scared. It's just because I learned how to specify that to the machine, and it's just a matter of you to learn that. So some of you may be like, this is exploding my mind, boom, right? It's okay. We all face that at some point. And as I said, you can learn to code, no excuses. It's just a matter of repetition, repetition, repetition. Huh?
I have so many excuses for you.
Well, we don't like excuses. Okay, now let's dive deep into React. So, any of you know what React is?
It's a library that Facebook invented.
Yeah, 1 point. Like basically, the React is a framework to build web applications. So when we are starting to create like single page applications, we will have lots of things to solve. We will need to say, how are we going to do the navigations? Like, how are we going to change from one page to the other? Or for example, how do I specify UI elements? Or how do I add behaviors to those elements? Like getting data from a server or from an API, or, you know, like keeping the state. Like once the user clicks on the dark mode, I want the whole application to be dark mode. Like there are a lot of things about the states, transitioning between pages, keeping all that stuff, that a framework allows you to say, hey, I wrote a bunch of stuff for you, so you just understand how to use me, but you will simplify your life and you will write less code. So that's what React is. It's a framework because it tells you how to do things that otherwise you could manually write and do all this stuff for every single new application that you write. So React is just simplifying the life, and it's helping you to build application. So React in the industry, apart from Eventbrite, it's, yeah.
And it's just for the front end. It has nothing to do with the backend.
Nothing to do. It's just for building UIs, like user interfaces. There is also a project from Facebook called React Native, which is using the same concepts from React, but building native applications like iOS and Android. But as you can see, all the React world is client-side, not like server, anything else. It's just for the UI, for the user interface. So Facebook redesigned the whole website into React. Twitter is using all the client side, like all the mobile version is using React as well. Eventbrite, we use React. So React is pretty well extended in the community. And for me to learn what React is, it's a very simple concept, like from the high level overview, which is what is a component. So if I tell you what is a component into a website, what would you say it's a component? Like what is a component? Explain it to me.
A header with several buttons.
A navigation bar. What else? Description. A list. All of those can be a components. Like what is a list? A list is a bunch of items all together. So exactly the same ideas that you use when designing, like creating a new card component or media card, or in EDS like an input field, etc. You have the same concept in React.
So this is very related with the concept of atomic design system, because I don't know, the icon, the logo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's I think like in React you can write stuff whatever you want. Like you can basically write a design system that has like atoms, molecules, and etc. Or you can just write components and that's it. But it's the same concept about like I want to split the whole big picture into small reusable pieces. Exactly. And basically it's like you create those small components, and if you want to create the header, it's going to have a logo, a search input field, it's going to have like a navigation, but you're just like combining small components that you created before. That's the idea. So yeah, in React, that's what a component is. It's just basically a split or break the logic of your application into small components, right? Into small reusable pieces. So more clear, like if you want to, for example, create a button to the user, you can create a React component and saying, all right, so this is my button, and this is like the text that the button is going to have. So don't bother if you don't see or you don't understand what is a function or what is return, because that's over and over what you're going to need to use. Just focus on the fact that you copy what is here and it's going to work. So it's pretty simple. So I have a very quick exercise that I want to do with you. So please go to this URL, bit.ly/, index.ly/first component. Okay, so once you are there, let's see if Macarena is there. What I want you to focus, it's basically change the hi there, I'm a button, and type your name. Like, hi there, I'm Emilio, I'm Jorge, I'm whatever you want to. And just in order to do that, click on this button here, fork.
When you are, always, when you put import React from React.
Yeah.
From React, where are you importing that? From where?
From React.
So, okay, so this is the process. First, some people at Facebook are working on the React stuff, right? Like they are working on the framework. Once they say we are super proud of the work that we did, they publish that on the internet. They use NPM or Yarn, and they said like a cloud repository. So they copy all the code from React and put it in the cloud. And once you want to use that in your local machine, you need to do like install, npm install or yarn install. So that is installing in your machine. So you just basically copy all the code that the Facebook guys created, put it on your machine, and you just import that. So saying, I want to use React logic to do stuff.
Okay, so it's npm install React.
You can use npm install React or Yarn, which is a new package manager from Facebook. Well, not a new, it's pretty old already, but that's the idea. Great, so you have just created your first React component. Now I'm gonna explain you like, you're designers, so I'm just gonna go real quick through this. But basically the way, when I'm seeing designs, let's suppose that this is a designer gives this design to me. What I normally think when implementing like all the application, I'm gonna start splitting the different section into smaller components. So I don't see this website like a whole. I started to think like, okay, I know that I have a sidebar or a menu navigation. I know like I have a big section in the middle, which is the content. And I know that I have like a sidebar or something on the right side. So navigation, content, and sidebar. Then I will start thinking deeper and deeper about this design. And I will say, well, I know like, you know, on the left side, I have the logo, which can be a component. I have like every single item on the menu that is a component. The menu, like, then I will go to the middle section, say, I have like this filtering part, like saying what is the current section that you are in, as well as what is the filter. Then I'm gonna see the tweet composer, and I'm gonna see my timeline. And then on the sidebar, you will say, I have a search input field, and also I have like trends for you. And I can keep going farther and deeper on this one, and keep breaking these things up, and say, it's just not only trends for you, it's like the trends for you is a component that has a header, as well as a bunch of items. And then a timeline, it's just not the timeline as a whole, it's a bunch of tweets. And I can go going farther and deeper and say, how can I split up this tweet? So I can say, boom, the tweet has an avatar, the tweet has a text, the tweet has the owner or the sender of the tweet has different icons. So you can keep going farther and farther on that one. So this activity, the idea is not you doing the activity, is watching me like to doing the activity, and later on in your house you can do it. Why is this? Because I want to show you like how can we start from a design and actually executing the components. So let me put side by side this great example. So the goal that we are going to achieve right now is basically, I get this design from a designer, and I want to create a React component that is a tweet. Okay? So all of you pay attention to this. Okay. So first of all, and don't be scared. It's gonna be great. Maca, don't be scared, huh? I see you. Okay, so the first thing is that, you know, I have this bunch of information. It's just like, you know, in a sketch, you have the properties part where you say, this is the font size that I want to use, or this is the font family. Like in a sketch or in Framer, you already have this one. Like if you go here to the layout, you already have those properties. So here I'm defining the same stuff. This is a tweet. This is just plain data. What is the information? I have a username, I have a name, I have a URL, like an avatar. I know where it was published. I know the text, I know the likes, I know the comments, I know if this tweet was liked or not by the current user. So this is just like the data. I don't care about how things are gonna look like. I'm just thinking about what is the information that I need in order to show a tweet, okay? So once I have that, I'm gonna.
Like a JSON?
It's a JSON.
Okay.
It's in JavaScript it's called object literal, but this syntax is JSON.
Okay.
And here you can like nested stuff and keep doing like more. So it's just a plain JSON. Great. So and normally this data will come from the backend. So the work of a front-end engineer is basically call an API, like call a server and say, give me what is all the tweets that this user has. So I'm gonna retrieve like a list of tweets.
Okay.
So this is kind of course, like to render something like Twitter, you will need more extra information and more complex one. This is a simplification, but it's a really great starting point. So now I'm gonna go to the design and say, okay, so I know that on the left side I have an avatar and I know that I have content there, right? So if I go to the next slide, okay. May not go to the next slide. Okay. So if I go to the next slide, this is what we are going to build. So I'm going to define high level. Can I close this? So I'm going to define high level. What is this tweet is going to have? So I have this component here that is called tweet card, or it can be card. So I'm just going to say, okay, so what do I need here? So I'm just going to need something on the left side, which can be like, if this is called card, this is gonna be card aside. This is your just like naming convention, so don't bother. But basically what I'm starting to define here is the layout. So I know that I have a site, which is where the avatar is gonna stay. And then I have the content, which is basically the right side. So as you can see, I'm defining, I'm gonna have something on the left side and I'm gonna have something on the right side, which is called content. So once I define this, I'm gonna say inside this, oops, I'm gonna have an avatar, right? So I'm gonna have the user image. In this case, what properties, if you think about properties, this avatar may have. Like I'm talking about this one. What properties this avatar may have?
Border radio 100%.
Background size.
Okay, that's the CSS, right? That's how things gonna look like. But from the data point of view, what I need in order to
The image.
the source. So you need the URL. So here I'm not thinking in terms of design, I'm not thinking in terms of CSS, I'm just thinking in terms of what data does this avatar need, okay? So in this case, I'm just gonna go and say tweet.avatar, right? I'm accessing the avatar property from the tweet.
Okay. And why are you using avatar instead of image as a proper?
You can use this. Normally what I would do is, in this case, I would encapsulate like ideas into components, because here is like, yeah, you only have like an image tag, for example, but maybe you're gonna need a styles, you're gonna need alt, you're gonna need extra stuff. So I normally like to encapsulate UI elements into components, but you can use here image. So there's no, I mean, you can do this.
Yeah.
So there's no, like, it depends. Like normally, if you want to reuse this component over and over, using like this one will force you to copy this over and over everywhere.
Yeah.
The styles, the layout. But creating a component, that means that if I want to reuse this avatar somewhere else, you can just use the component. And the component itself will have the style, we have everything. So I mean, you can use both ways. It's perfectly fine.
So, but when you render the application, it knows, React knows that the avatar component is an image.
React doesn't care.
Okay.
Honestly, React tells you, you will go to React and basically say, I want to define a new component, which is the avatar.
Okay.
And the avatar will have properties, right? So in this case, the properties of the avatar of these components gonna be URL. So you will say URL, right? And then you will return something.
Okay.
So this is very similar to.
Oh, okay.
This is very similar to HTML.
Yeah.
It's called JSX, but it's very similar. But React doesn't care if that is an image, if that is a video, if that is a text.
But, yeah, okay, but what avatar do is an image. It's an image. It's an image.
This will eventually be rendered as an image to the browser, but you don't need to care, like to take care of that, right? And then the only, like, you can put a text here, like this is an avatar. I know this may be a little bit confusing. What do you think? Any questions so far? So this is like, this you will probably copy over and over anytime that you want to use a component. Like there is different ways of defining a component, but you don't care about this one. If I want to create a new component now, if I were you, I would just copy that one and say, okay, instead of avatar, I'm going to call it like, I don't know, menu, okay? And instead of a URL, I'm going to receive like a list of items, for example. So like, don't care too much about like how you write stuff. Just focus on the idea, like with this stuff, you will write a new React component. You can pass some properties to that React component, which is the same as you would use in Sketch. Like you pass properties. So see the properties as this right panel. And then you just return HTML, in this case, JSX.
Okay.
Anyway. And then I'm just gonna write this real quick. But basically, if we see the design, so I may probably have here a header. So the header is gonna be composed of. I'm going too deep on this one. Maybe we don't need to cover this as of now. What do you think?
I definitely like the basic introduction that you did. It was very enlightening because in my opinion, we have some, basic understanding, but chunks of information that we put together in our own, logic.
Yeah.
But it's okay it's very likely to have a perspective of an engineer that we're not completely wrong, but we need a little bit more information related to the more technical part of the code.
Yeah. So, so this is a very brief example, right? But the idea is like you define components. Those components has HTML, aka JSX, and you write some style. So that's pretty much the idea, the overall idea. Now, like what it requires you to actually start writing things like React and all that stuff, learn a little bit about like CSS, learn about like HTML, learn about like all this stuff. But that's basically the overall idea.
Right. For the next workshop, I think it will be a great example to build a ES component and see how how it is built now with the logic inside and how it is going to be built in the future.
Yeah.
The logic inside just the empty component in terms of UI.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that. So I'm just gonna finish this real quick. But actually, like once you know a little bit like about React, you can start integrating that into Framer. So I post some videos. Okay. So basically, I'm just gonna demo you this, but we can dive deep on a next workshop. But the idea is like, the cool stuff about Framer is that, let's suppose that I am previewing this one. Let me move this to the side and let me resize the screen. Okay. So in Framer, you can actually have a state. So in the properties, you can specify, is the user, Oh, damn. Hold on. Mirror. Great. So in Framer, you can have different states. And based on the state, your UI will react. Very similar to what it happens in a real application. So for example, imagine that I want to differentiate whether the user is logging or not. And based on that, I want to change the UI. So in Framer, actually, you can do that. And it's very simple. So with the help of React, I can basically tell the component, like, what's the current state? Is it on? Is it off? And based on that, like, if the user is logging, I'm gonna show my account. If the user is not logging, I'm just gonna show a sign up. And all of this happens with React. Okay. So I'm not gonna dive deep right now on how everything works. But basically, you define a bunch of stuff, but everything goes into the idea of, if this property exists, I will show something. Otherwise, I'm going to show something else. So that's really powerful. When you integrate React into Framer, you can do more advanced stuff. Like you can do conditional logic, or you can do any extra animation, or fetching data from a third-party server. So your prototypes come to life, and actually you can copy and paste over these components, or share them with your engineers and things like that. Okay, so this is the action plan. This is the end of the presentation. So first of all, I'm gonna send you the slides. So reread the presentation from the from slide 0 to slide 70, whatever. Second, create your first interactive prototype in Framer. So next week, I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna go to your desks, I'm gonna bug you, and I'm gonna say, all right, show me the prototype that you did, okay? So, be aware that I'm gonna do that. So yeah, start creating your first code components if you want. But the idea is like you create your first prototype with Framer. And I'm gonna put a calendar reminder, a nice calendar reminder. Here, there are some nice resources that I strongly recommend you to take a look, especially the fourth is a series of YouTube videos that is pretty cool. So I strongly recommend you that. As well as the other one, it's a more advanced stuff, like different animations that you can do in Framer, micro interactions. So it explains you, for example, if you want to have an action button, how could you design that with Framer?
What are the blockers now within Eventbrite to have motion and animation in our EDS components?
Say that the question, like if there is animation in EDS components?
No, what are the blockers? Why we don't have it?
I think like we have some animations, but the question is like, you can do it. Like from the technology point of view, there's no blocker.
Just lazy people.
I mean, I don't know, but there's no, like, to be honest, once you write React, once you write JavaScript or with CSS, there's no real blocker on what it's possible or not. It's more about like maybe the company deciding, okay, we want to start adding some animations, or we want to start adding some stuff. Actually, there in EDS, there are some animations. Like you can animate some stuff, or when, for example, you open the checkout flow, like, you know, the model like appears like that. There are some animations.
Oh.
But it's a good question. It's like you can do it.
Some waterfall events.
Yeah, I mean you can use it. So there's no real blocker for that. It's just like from the UX point of view, like does it make sense to have animations or not? And yeah, I mean maybe animations sometimes are great stuff to improve the UI. So anyway, so here you have like lots of different examples that you can use. So I strongly recommend you to take a look to this because it's pretty cool and it will cover more advanced stuff, even like loaders and things like that. So there is a lot of content here and it's really great because it explains you like how to do this. Okay, we can do the Q&A, but I have something else to show you. So I know like Jose was very like, I want to leave the room by knowing how to be a hacker. So I'm gonna show you how to be a real hacker. So you just go to this URL and you will pretend.
My experience as a hacker is like go to the menu or option in Chrome and put inspect.
Jose, I'm a hacker. I'm telling you how to be a hacker. You just go to hackertyper.net and you just pretend to be a hacker. And you see, I'm not doing anything, or maybe yes. Who knows? So yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Video it's over, that's all. But you can still watch more videos. Maybe you can enjoy this video. Or maybe you can enjoy this video. Or maybe this one. Or you know what, maybe you can watch all of them. And by the way, if you really enjoy the channel, subscribe right here. Just one click.